So the Wheel of Time has this line it repeats like a spell. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills, and on the surface, that sounds like fate, like destiny. But if you sit with it for a while, it becomes something deeper. Because the Wheel of Time isn't just a fantasy story, it's a cosmology, a metaphysical map rooted in ancient ideas, from the Buddhist cycle of rebirth to the Taoist vision of a universe unfolding in patterns. It's a world where time isn't a line, it's a spiral, where souls are reborn, where history repeats, but never quite the same. And where power doesn't just come from strength, it comes from balance. It's also a world shaped by pattern, literally. There's this concept called the pattern of the ages. The Wheel of Time weaves the pattern of the ages, and all lives are threads in that pattern. The idea is that every life is a thread, and the wheel is constantly weaving those threads into something greater. Something none of us can see from where we stand, but it's always moving, always shaping, always turning. That's what the books are about. That's what the show is about. And that's what this channel, Magus in the Media, is all about too. We're here to look at stories through the lens of myth, magic, and transformation. So, today, we're going deep into how channeling works, not just in terms of the plot, but in terms of what it means, what it represents, and how it ties into Taoism, Raja Yoga, Eastern alchemy, and the old idea that the path to power is the path to self-mastery. In the Wheel of Time, those who can channel tap into forces called the One Power. It's the energy that turns the wheel, the source of creation, and it's split into two halves, Saidar, the female half, and Saidin, the male. Women must surrender to Saidar. They have to open to it, let it flow through them. Moraine tells Egwene, it's a river you float on. You guide it, but you must never try to force it. That line could have come straight from the Tao Te Ching. Taoist masters say the same thing. The world flows like water. Try to control it and you will drown. Flow with it and it will carry you. Saidar is yin energy, receptive, intuitive, powerful through patience and presence. But for men, the experience is completely different. Saidin is chaos. Rand describes it like fire, lightning crashing all around him, trying to destroy him every time he touches it. And to use it, he has to seize it, dominate it, fight it into shape. That's the yang energy, not alignment, force. And that's not just a fantasy mechanic, it's a myth. It's spiritual allegory. In Vajrayana Buddhism, there's this idea of tumo, or inner fire, where the body is used as a crucible to burn away illusion and awaken clarity. In Shaolin, monks spend years refining this kind of inner heat, not just to break bricks or perform magical feats, but to transform the self, to tame what's wild inside. In both East and West, that inner fire is the first stage of alchemy. In Hermetic tradition, it's called calcination, the burning away of the false self, the ego, the pride, the illusions, so that something truer can emerge. And Rand's story? It's the same story. He begins as someone afraid of what he is, then he resists it, tries to fight it, tries to control it, until finally, the only way forward is to transform. It's not just power, it's purification. Channeling isn't just raw energy. It's a weave, literally. Every channeler learns to combine 5 elemental threads: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. And that's not some invented system. It's a direct nod to classical alchemy. In Hermetic and magical traditions, those 5 elements aren't just physical. They're symbolic. Earth is body, water, emotion, air, thought, fire, will, and spirit is the soul, the thing that connects all others. In ceremonial magic, those 5 forces are the foundation of ritual. In yogic theory, they map to the chakras and the elements of the subtle body, and in Taoism, you get a slightly different version, the 5 phases: water, wood, fire, earth, and metal, which describe how energy moves, transforms, and returns. Robert Jordan was clearly drawing on these ideas. The Aes Sedai don't cast spells. They train. They meditate. They learn discipline over body, mind, and energy. They're more like Taoist priestesses or Vedic adepts than fantasy witches. And spirit is the key. Varen says spirit is the bridge. And she's right. In every system of esoteric practice, spirit is the link between the material and the divine. In Taoism, it's Shen, radiant spirit. In yoga, Atman, the true self. In Hermeticism, it's the quintessence, the thing that makes wholeness possible. That's why Nynaeve can heal when she's not even trying. Why Egwene grows not just in skill, but in stillness. Because the real power, real channeling, doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from becoming more. They're not just learning magic, they're undergoing transformation. And in every mystery tradition, that's what initiation is all about. You enter weak and unsure, and if you survive the trial, you emerge changed. Because the wheel doesn't just turn, it refines. Now here is where it gets personal. Because if this isn't just magic, if it's myth, if it's metaphor, if it's a kind of spiritual system, then the real question is, what does it teach us? What would it mean to train like an Aes Sedai, or to walk the path of the Dragon Reborn? The show, more than even the books, give us a kind of visual language for this kind of training. When we see women learning to channel in the White Tower, they're not just throwing fireballs, they're breathing, they're holding posture. They're learning to feel the power before they use it. That, to me, seems like Tai Chi or Qigong. It's not a fight, it's an attunement. In Tai Chi, every movement flows from the Dantian, the center of gravity. Breath and intent guide the form. You don't force the energy, you listen to it. Just like Saidar. And in Qigong, you're not just cultivating energy, you're refining it. You're moving it through the meridians, transforming raw vitality into clarity, stillness, power. That's the process we see with Egwene, with Nynaeve, with Moraine. And when you pair that with the internal disciplines of Raja Yoga, with stillness of mind, with meditation, with breath, with mantra, you start to access the kind of awareness that guides energy, not just manipulates it. Then add in ceremonial magic to the mix, with its ritual structures, elemental balance, invocations of archetypes, and what you're left with is not just a fan theory. It's a training path. You don't need to be born with the spark. You can learn. That's what every mystery school has ever said. The one power, the force, the light, the chi. Whatever you want to call it, the key is discipline, self-awareness, practice. And when you follow that path, whether through Tai Chi, through breath work, through yoga, or magic, you're not just cosplaying an Aes Sedai. You're becoming one. You're not waiting for a prophecy. You're becoming your own Dragon Reborn. Because this story, this system, it's not just a metaphor. It's an invitation. And there's no better example of that path than Rand. He doesn't just channel, he endures, he transforms, he breaks, and rebuilds himself again and again. What we see in Rand isn't just a chosen one story. It's the path of the initiate. The internal fire, the weight of the pattern pressing down on someone who doesn't know if they can hold it, but does it anyway. In the next section, we're going to look at Rand al'Thor as a mythic archetype, the dragon, the Gnostic revealer, the bodhisattva, the fisher king, and the man who learns that true power doesn't come from prophecy. It comes from what you do with it, because the wheel of time isn't just about fate. It's about what you become when the wheel turns. So now, let's bring it back to Rand. By now we know he's not just the chosen one. He's the Dragon Reborn, the man prophesied to break the world. But if you're watching this through the lens of myth, energy, and initiation, you start to realize he's not just a character. He's a stand-in for anyone who walks the spiritual path, for anyone who confronts their inner chaos, learns to hold power without being consumed, and awakens to the truth that the world will only change if you do it first. That's the real journey of the adept, not the fantasy, the fire. Rand is thrown into a current he doesn't really and truly understand. He doesn't get a training montage. He gets a trial by fire. Because Saidin, the male half of the One Power, isn't just wild. It reflects what's wild inside you. Your fear, your ego, your trauma. If you can't hold it with clarity, it eats you alive. That's not just fantasy. That's reality, something that we all face on a day-to-day basis. In Taoist internal alchemy, there's this idea that raw energy called Jing must be refined through practice, stillness, and breath. It becomes Qi, then Shen, and only then can spirit guide the body without conflict. The Aes Sedai do this too, just in a different form. They train, they sit, they meditate. They're taught not just how to channel, but how to be still enough to survive it. That's the training we see Egwene go through. That's what Nynaeve resists until it nearly destroys her. And that's the practice behind every true spiritual tradition. Stillness before power, awareness before action. Rand walks the same path, but through force, through pain. His practice is life and death. And that's the part of the archetype he carries, not just the savior, but the alchemical king, the one who must dissolve to be reborn. In Eastern tradition, this is the Shenren, the true person, the realized being, the one who refines the three treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen, essence, vital energy, and spirit. And once you've done that, once your mind, energy, and body are aligned, you can shape reality from within. That's channeling. That is weaving. And that is what the dragon represents. Someone who is burned through the illusion of separation and chooses to hold the pattern in balance. Not because he has to, but because he can. So when we talk about becoming like an Aes Sedai or walking the path of the dragon, we're not talking about fantasy. We're talking about the work. Tai Chi, Qigong, Raja Yoga, ceremonial magic. They're not different from what we see in the White Tower. They just use different language. And when you walk those paths, when you train the body, still the mind, refine the spirit, you're not just imagining the story. You are living it. You're becoming the weaver, not because you're special, but because you showed up. And the wheel always turns, but whether it turns towards chaos or clarity, that is up to you. So let's look a little closer at what it really means to channel in the Wheel of Time. Because when an Aes Sedai weaves the One Power, they're not just throwing elements around. They're working with specific threads of energy, combining earth and fire, separating water and air, focusing spirit. That's exactly what internal energy training looks like in the Taoist and Chinese medicine. In Tai Chi, you don't just move. You cultivate energy from the Dantian, the lower energy center in the belly. That is the source, the cauldron. The place where you refine your Jing, your vital essence, into something more usable. If that sounds familiar, well, it should. It's the same as the flame and the void, the still center every channeler must reach before they can safely hold the power. It's the mental still point he returns to again and again, a technique passed down from father, but echoing real meditative traditions in Taoism and martial arts. Rand al'Thor is quoted in The Eye of the World, the flame and the void. The flame consumes the void, and the void is the peace at the heart of the flame. That is how Tam had taught him to concentrate. In Qigong and Taoist alchemy, energy moves through meridians, channels that link the organs, bones, limbs, and breath. You don't just direct energy randomly, you guide it with awareness. And when those channels are blocked, you feel it, physically, emotionally, spiritually. In the Wheel of Time, this is exactly what happens when a novice tries to channel without training. They seize too much, they lose control, or worse, they burn out. The meridians of the body can't hold what the mind isn't ready to receive. Egwene is quoted to say, she had touched the source once without even meaning to, and it had nearly killed her. It was like trying to drink the sun through a straw. That line hits hard, and it echoes an ancient Taoist warning. If the fire rises too fast, the vessel will crack. This is why practices like Tai Chi and Qigong are done slowly, deliberately, not just for health, but for preparation, because the body must become a channel, not just metaphorically, but energetically. So when an Aes Sedai weaves fire into air, or when Rand learns to split weaves into multiple flows, that's not fantasy. That's microcosmic circulation. That is energy layering. That's real technique. And spirit is the breath inside the breath, the awareness behind the movement. You must surrender to Saidar, says Moraine, not try to control it. You must trust it. Trust yourself. And if that isn't a Taoist teaching, I don't know what is. Even the idea of 5 powers in channeling, earth, air, fire, water, spirit, lines up with the 5 phases in Chinese medicine. Not just elements, but organ systems, emotions, seasonal rhythms, each tied to a different energy. Wood to liver, fire to heart, earth to spleen, metal, lungs, water, kidneys. To weave these energies in harmony is to embody a complete internal system. That's what channeling is really modeling, a sacred energetic framework that links body, mind, and world. So when we say the one power is divided, Saidin and Saidar, what we're really saying is the path of awakening looks different depending upon your energy, your nature, your karma. But the goal is the same: integration, balance, wisdom. And that's what Rand has to learn, not just how to survive the power, but how to understand himself enough to wield it. The path of the adept, that is the path of the dragon. And it's not locked inside a prophecy. It's not just for heroes. It's for anyone willing to train, to breathe, to move, to listen to the silence, to learn to weave their own pattern, one thread at a time. So what does this all mean for you? What if the one power isn't just a fantasy concept, but a metaphor for the energy running through your own body? What if the White Tower is an ancient memory of a mystery school? Places that taught people how to train the breath, calm the mind, and focus the intent. What if the dragon reborn is not just a messiah, but a mirror? Someone who carries the fire, breaks under it, and still chooses to rise. Not because fate says so, but because the path demands it. Because here's the truth we've been circling this whole time. You don't need to be chosen. You just need to practice. You can start with breath, with stillness, with structure, with ritual. You can learn to weave, to balance the elements, to refine your inner fire instead of being consumed by it. That's what the stories like The Wheel of Time are really here for. Not escape, awakening. So the question is, what are you weaving with your life right now? Are you listening to the source, or are you trying to control it? Are you caught in the pattern, or learning to dance with it? And if the dragon must be reborn in every age, who are you becoming in this one? If you're into this kind of mythic analysis, if you love stories, symbols, and how fiction hides forgotten wisdom, subscribe to Magus in the Media. Leave a comment below, share your thoughts, and let's keep unraveling these threads together, because the wheel is always turning. And this is just one turning of the tale.